To help you with the graphing process, if you have an equation like y equals 2x minus 1, and what you need to do is to substitute numbers into the x column and the x variable. So any number that you want will line up and make a line, literally any number. So if you plug in 0, and you're going to put right where the x is. So 0 times 2 is 0, and then 0 minus 1 is -1. And then you graph the point 0, -1. If you substitute 1 in, again, just pick random numbers. Again, smaller numbers the better, but if you substitute 1 in, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1, and then graph the point 1, 1. Substitute in -1. -1 times 2 is -2. -2 minus 1 is -3. -1, -3. Notice they're lining up. Anytime you get a point over here and they don't line up, that means you've made a math mistake. Every single time, these will line up. Don't matter what it is. So even if you picked a number like 6, 6 times 2 is 12. 12 minus 1 is 11. So if you go all the way to 611, it will line up with that line. So again, you don't want to pick big numbers because in big numbers mean you have to graph big numbers. So you choose smaller numbers. Typically, I try 0, 1, and -1, or 0, 1, and 2, something like that. So it works out nice and easy. Look at another example. Whenever you have a fraction, some students, like as soon as they see a fraction, they start panicking and they end up with fractions. Like if I plug in, well, I almost always want to plug in 0, by the way. So plug in 0. 0 times 2/3 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So 0, 1. 0 is always a nice number to plug in. If I plug in 1, okay, I don't want to on this problem, but if I plug in 1 right here, 1 times 2/3 is 2/3. And then 2/3 plus 1 is 1 and 2/3. Now, the problem, you can graph that, but you're kind of guessing. So if I go over 1 and then up 1 and 2/3, it's right around here, but I don't really know exactly where 2/3 is. So I really don't want to use that point. You don't want to graph fractions if you can avoid it. You don't want to graph them. So you're saying, well, what number do I choose? If I try 2, I'm still going to get a fraction. If I try 5, I'm still going to get a fraction. Well, one thing I want you to notice, notice the denominator. The denominator is a big clue of what numbers to plug in. So let's try 3. If I plug 3 in, so if I take 2/3 times 3, well, that's going to give us 6/3, which reduces to 2. So notice there's no fraction. So you're going to end up with a nice number. If I plug in 6, again, I'm trying to do multiples of that denominator. If I plug in 6, 2 times 6 is 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. See, I'm trying to find numbers that don't have fractions. And so that denominator is a big clue. So even if I did -3 or -6 or 9 or -9, see, any multiples of that denominator will turn out to be nice numbers. And then like 3, 3, you can graph that. 6, 5, you can graph that and see it makes a straight line. Again, you only need 2 or 3 numbers to make it. I always recommend 3 numbers to recommend you can see a line and they will connect. So on this one right here, again, it's not necessarily a guessing game like what numbers won't make it. Look at the denominator. The denominator is the clue. So you always want to do 0 and then 4 and then -4. You could do 8 and -8 if you want. But again, typically I stay with smaller numbers. And so when you plug 0 in, you're going to get 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. You plug 4 in, you're going to get -3. -3 plus 2 is -1. No fractions. You plug -4 in, you're going to get 5. Again, no fractions. And I'm going to stay with those three numbers. And if I graphed it, see, it does make a line right here. It does make a line. So again, that denominator is a big clue. So when you get to problems like this, you're trying to find some number for the x and to the y. And again, it's not a guessing game. Students, when they first see this, they think, that I have to pick some random numbers that will make x and y equal to, when I plug them in, and equal to 8. And you don't have to do that. If you use your algebra first, and what you're trying to solve for is y. If you notice all those other equations, it said y equals -3/4 x plus 2, y equals 2/3 x plus 1, y equals 2x minus 1. So what we want is this equation to be y equals. So we're going to minus 3x from both sides. And you can write 8 minus 3x if you want, but I like putting the x first for a certain reason. I recommend that you put the x first. Again, notice it's -3x, and notice that's a positive 8. And then you're going to divide everything by 2. So divide that by 2, divide that by 2, divide that by 2. And the reason is so that now that's y equals -3/2 x plus 4. And the whole reason why we did that is so you can see that denominator. So based on what I just now went over on the previous two examples, you're going to use 0, 2, and -2. It's all based on that denominator. You can do 4, -4 if you want, but those three would be the three smallest numbers that you want to do. So hopefully that helps you with graphing.